Working Hands Radio.
I'm just a hard-working man, taking it day by day, doing everything I can, trying to chase my blues around. You need to clear your head.
And that is Ron Your Rose and the Vehicle. It's an Erie, PA band bringing us into another edition of Working Hands Radio. Good evening, everybody. This is Phil Kerner. And in just a few moments, we'll turn the webcam on. I am flying solo tonight. Howie Herman is not here tonight. He's up in Buffalo tonight getting some training, and maybe he'll check in with us in a little bit. So tonight is Tuesday, June 26th, 2018, Dateline, Erie, Pennsylvania. And you're listening to the only show like it on planet Earth. If you work with your hands, if you build really cool things every day, if you're a craftsman, well, then this is where you belong for the next hour. Because here at Working Hands Radio, we speak your language. And that's the language of getting things done right, on time, every time. At least if they give us enough time, right? So let's talk a little bit, a lot of things to talk about tonight. Again, we'll open up our toll-free phone number here in just a few minutes, because without you, we don't have a program, right? Because this isn't a podcast. This is what I consider the world's only live talk show that's dedicated to the trades and people who work with their hands. Lots of freebies to give away tonight. But before we get to that, as I always say, we need to do our roll call. So if you're listening tonight from anywhere in the United States or maybe around the world, we love to see where you're checking in from. I'm doing the social media myself tonight, but I will get to it. But your name and where you're from is always awesome. We love to hear from you. And that shows us who we're reaching and brings us all together, and I really enjoy that the most. So, again, I'm flying solo tonight. So you guys are going to play a big part in the program. You're going to be my co-host tonight. And I didn't tell you that before I got on the air because I didn't want anybody to get nervous, but it's easy. So this is program number 16. And it's taken me about the first 15 weeks to figure out who my audience is. And you never know. You know, when you're doing this, the first 10 weeks or so, I was live on the radio here in Erie and simulcasting right here on Facebook. And I did notice a lot of the interaction I got was from Facebook more than the call-ins locally, okay? And there's a lot of reasons for that. But in Erie, Pennsylvania, the hot spot for call-in radio is 6 to 9 in the morning. So I don't know if anybody was even ready for me at 7 p.m., but we still love broadcasting from WJT, and maybe we'll be back down there sometime. But as I said before, these first 15 weeks, you know, we've touched on a lot of topics. I've had apprentices as guests. I've had women business owners. We've talked about robotics. We've had students in. But, you know, when I listen to the calls, and I listen to every program just to see how technically it went, and I especially enjoyed re-listening to the phone calls to see how those went. But I can tell most, if not all, of my listeners, there's a lot of tool and die guys and mold makers out there. And I can just tell by the comments I get and the phone calls, a lot of smart guys out there. And, you know, pat yourself on the back. If you've gone through an apprenticeship, if you're a mold maker or a tool maker, or you ever were one, there's a lot to be said for that. You know, because until you've worked as a mold maker or a tool maker, you'll probably never get it. And there's a certain thing that comes with that. You know, one little thing is, you know, it's probably not a great idea to refer to someone as a machinist, right, when they're really a tool and die maker. There's something about that just that bugs us, right? Because we're not machinists, and we could run machines, but we're tool and die makers. We're mold makers. So where does that come from? And you know, some people might even call it, you know, maybe a little arrogant, interesting, but I can tell you where it came from in me. That I worked in the mold making trade for most of my life. And then 12 years ago, I switched over to the machining world. And it was a big change for me. And it's like funny because, you know, there's like 100 of us on the shop floor, and I own the only Gerstner box in the shop. And without a doubt, I have more tools than anyone in the plant. Because that's what we did, right? Tool and die makers, we bought our own tools, and there's lots to be said for that. Sometimes I have so many tools at the QC department. We have a beautiful QC department, but they have to come over and borrow stuff from me. And usually it's only because their stuff's out getting calibrated, but that's how many tools we collected as tool makers, and we love our tools. When I retire, I don't even know if I'll be able to sell them. They've just been, half the tools I own, or maybe a third of them, are my father's, and I just don't know if I'd ever be able to part with them. But someday they'll end up somewhere, I guess. So it all started with my apprenticeship, and I don't know where it started with you, but talk about implanting an attitude of excellence into you right from the beginning. Back in those days, the mold makers and their apprentices, they wore white aprons at my place, Anson Tools and Gauges. The mold makers and the apprentices wore white aprons, and the machinists wore blue aprons. And I guess that's where the prima donna stuff starts, right? And I actually have a picture here. That's my apron from 1980. I still have it. That's one of them. We had 5 of them. They'd wash them for us. But yeah, there's my apron from when I was an apprentice. Pretty cool stuff there. I could never wear that white apron into work now. They'd kill me. The guys would, but wore the white aprons. And, as you can see from the photo, our names were embroidered on them. It's not just silk screened on there. They spent the time and money to do that. And that was for all the apprentices and the tool makers, the mold makers. And there was this whole respect thing, too, right? If you were mouthy or lazy or had an attitude, you just weren't going to last long. But if you were respectful and earnest, remember that word, earnest? Well, then, these guys, these mold makers, these masters, they teach you and they show you the way to learn the trade, right? So let's think about this. Your apprenticeship. And mine started in 1980. And they started off with, besides all the night school, with, bench work, how to lay out lines and punch holes, center punch holes, and go over the drill press. You learned the manual machines, the mills, the lathes, the grinders. Then you had to learn all the attachments, the rotary tables, the sign plates, the indexing heads. And then there's the EDM department, electrode discharge machining. And you made your own electrodes. You had to learn how to run the EDM machine itself. Remember the little Westhoff drilling machine to drill those tiny flushing holes in your electrodes? Then there was cutter grinding and drill sharpening. And finally, you learned how to assemble and fit up an injection mold. And, of course, I said the tools. We all had so many tools because there was no QC department, because we checked our own work. And I was stunned, when I went into the machining world. And I get it. We have to have an inspection department with 100 guys out there cranking out parts. But in the end, if you really think about it, if you've ever worked as a mold maker, it's a collaborative effort. It's between the designers, the machinists, the tool machinists, and, of course, the tool makers who have to put all this stuff together. So what's that got to do with anything? Well, what I realize here is the reason on this program with your comments and your call-ins is that for the most part I have to deal with a bunch of rude, crazy people on this program because you guys get it. The comments are always respectful, intelligent, and I appreciate that. It's a funny thing. The other day I was working on this. Let's take a look at this picture here. Just giant weldment, all right? Thing's like 40 inches long, and nice cutter there. It's a 7-inch key. We call them slitting saws. And I can guarantee you as a mold maker, I didn't use those too often. But it's just funny. One of the owners came by. We were trying to figure out how we wanted to check this thing, before we even machined it. Was it flat and everything? Because it's so long, we were having an issue trying to get an indicator in there. And I just think I had to get an indicator kind of right on the center line of the spindle. And he says, and this is with all due respect, but he said, go borrow an Indicall. And I'm thinking, borrow an Indicall? You mean like the one I've had in my toolbox since 1980 that's still in the original box? So, I bought that one in 1980, and I don't use that often, but yes, the tool and die guy does have an Indicall. So anyways, I've always made it clear, I'm not an anti-technology guy. I use technology every day. That's a CNC machine you're seeing right there, Mazak VTC20, and and of course I use AutoCAD a lot for math. I use AutoCAD for a lot of different things, but when we were taught to run those manual machines back then, when we got into CNC machining, I always say it was like cheating, right? I mean, oh my gosh, how easy is that? Back those days, we didn't have computers. And I'm not that old, folks. And you had to learn your shop math. And at least we had calculators. My father did all this without even having a calculator. And don't forget, there were no CNC machines. There were NC tape machines, which were basically a very expensive player piano, right? You had paper tapes with holes in them. God forbid you ripped a tape or one of the holes didn't get punched in, all the way through. Those things couldn't even mill circles. They couldn't interpolate a circle. So it was interesting, right? So I can tell you, in all those years I worked as a mold maker, though, I never had a serious problem with a mold maker or a tool maker during my entire career. The disagreements were there, but they just stayed civil. And because I still say the most part, the mentality to do that type of work just doesn't line up with kind of being a jerk. You have to work with people. So I'll end with this. I think there's two types of guys in every shop. There's the tool makers, and there's the guys that will want to be tool makers. And with that, let's get the webcam up and running. Good evening. It's Phil Kerner. I'm here. And let me do a quick check-in, you guys, with social media, because I'm managing this myself tonight. So let's see who's up and about tonight. We're going to check this with the my old iPhone here. And, we have 10 comments, but we got to see the comments first. And I apologize that I have to kind of do this myself. Hello, Howie, listening from New York. See you next Tuesday. Manual Machinist, Marshall Collins. And Doug, we are craftsmen. Yes, we are. Braintree, Vermont. Thank you. Bedford, PA. And there's the Queen from Erie, PA, and Doug from Salem, Ohio. Keep checking in. If you're just tuning in, we always do a roll call, and it's fun to hear from you guys. So I kind of opened up there with what I would call that's my story, but what's yours? And we're here tonight, as always, to get the conversation rolling. Again, I've always made very crystal clear here that this is not a podcast, because I could just turn on a tape recorder or just turn on this and record it and put it out there for you guys. The big deal here is taking your phone call. So there's the phone number, 800-870-1648. Who's going to be my first caller tonight? Who's got the balls to call? That's what I always say. Because you guys, once the first guy calls, then everybody calls. So who's going to be my guinea pig tonight? Because I've got a little gift here for you guys if you're going to call in tonight. I got your choice for my first caller tonight. Two different, very, very nice ball caps here. The first one is our sponsor, Industrial Sales and Manufacturing. This is a very nice, soft, navy blue ball cap. Let me make that look a little bit better there. But it's a nice cap, good cap, like this cap. And then I've got this one from a previous sponsor. I'm still using some of the stuff they gave me. Utterly Smooth hand lotions up in Salem, Ohio. These are really nice hats, and you guys would look tremendous in both of these. In fact, if your wife's birthday's coming up, I'd be the first caller, because every wife out there wants an Utterly Smooth hat. And you know what? Seriously, whoever gets this hat, I'll throw in some hand lotion too. Got some of that still laying around. So all good stuff. So again, the phone lines, 800-870-1648. I'd like to hear about what you guys think about how you learned the trade and what your experience was. So we've got that first phone call. Well, that's awesome. Let's see who it is. Good evening. This is Phil Kerner. You're on Working Hands Radio. Who's this?
Hello?
Hey there. You're on the air.
Oh, I'm on the air.
Yes, you
Yeah,
are.
somebody said something about not having the balls to call, so I was like, well, I'll be your huckleberry.
There
What's
you
going
go.
on?
Well, now, so who's this?
This is Daryl Ernest.
Dale Ernest. And where are you calling?
I'm calling out of San Diego, Chula Vista area.
Awesome. That's what do you do out in San Diego?
I work for BAE Systems for their land and armament section. I do basically weld and machine repair for weapon systems on board U.S. Navy ships.
That sounds fascinating. And so you work right in the naval base out there in San Diego?
I work near the Navy base. We are actually down in the old Raytheon building, but we do weapon systems for the Navy. And I was in the service and was a machinery repairman for about 13 years in the Navy, and I was a machinist doing that.
Okay, and how long have you been doing what you're doing now?
I've been doing this for about 4.5 years.
Okay. Now, so did you get into this right after you left the Navy?
I got into, actually, I was a machinist in the Navy. That's machinery repairman is what a machinist would be on the civilian side.
Mm-hmm. And
so I've got a.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I've got a history with HBMs, doing line bores and running VTLs, cutting valve discs and seats, big gate valves and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing now is a lot of reverberation repair. I will build up the ballistic armor plate and the ballistic aluminum that they use on the vertical launching systems in the Navy, and I'll machine everything back down to spec, which is basically what I do now, running a weld machine shop out here.
How many guys work where you work?
I'm sorry?
How many people are in your plant? Do you work for a big shop or a small shop?
It's a pretty small shop. I have I've got 2 welders that work under me, and I run that weld shop, and I do all of the machining that comes through. Mostly repair work. You know, people break stuff all the time, and you know I need somebody to fix it.
Now, are you from San Diego, or did you end up in San Diego because you were in the Navy?
I'm actually from El Dorado, Arkansas.
Okay.
But I moved out here, and I got out of the service out here, and then moved back home, and then moved back for this job. So I'm out here doing what we all love, tinkering with stuff.
So, what's your favorite part of your job? You really love your job?
I do. My favorite, I have to say, my most favorite part about all of it is when somebody will come to me with this broken, mangled something and say, "Oh my God, can you fix this? I don't know what to do." And then I'll either fix it or make a new one, and you know, just the look on their faces, like, man, that part was going to be $45,000 if we had to go buy a new one.
That's awesome,
and that's pretty satisfying to be able to do this stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you. How did you hear about this program? Were you just happen to be on Facebook, or how did you?
I've seen you on Facebook, and you had a deal where, you know, you get the program. I think you had knocked it down to. There's a bus going by. You knocked it down to, I think, $60.
Oh, my tool and die guy lessons. Okay.
And I went ahead and bought it, and you know, every once in a while on a rainy day, I'll start looking through there.
There's a lot of stuff.
I haven't made it through all of them yet.
There's a lot of stuff in there. So, yep.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff.
Very good. Well, you know what? I owe you a hat, and you have your choice between the one that's got the cow spots on it for the utterly smooth lotions, or the industrial sales and manufacturing navy blue hat. So, which one do you want?
I'm sorry. What were the choices again? It's pretty loud out here.
Not a problem. I've got a navy blue one that says industrial sales and manufacturing, one of our sponsors, and I've got one that's got spots on it like a cow. That's from the Utterly Smooth lotion company. So, which one do you want?
You know what? Surprise me.
All right, I will. So, what you need to do, because I'm not going to take your information over the phone, so you need to email me, and the email address is workinghandsradio@gmail.com. Okay?
workinghandsradio@gmail.com.
Send me your name and address, and this will go out tomorrow morning.
All righty.
Well, thanks for calling in.
I sure will. Working hands. Well, I'm sorry. What was it again?
workinghandsradio@gmail.com.
workinghandsradio@gmail.com.
That's it.
All righty.
All right. Thanks for your call. And San Diego is a pretty nice place to be, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It's all right. I'm trying to get back to Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
I like it out in the woods.
Yeah, that's a little different out there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I know there's you could do this. You could do this job for a lifetime and not learn everything there is.
Nope. You're exactly right.
There's just, and that's one of my favorite things about this kind of work is there's always something to learn, something you ain't never seen before. And man, I appreciate you for putting all them videos and training videos, and maybe get some of us younger guys into doing this stuff, because everything's going to CNC. You know, they just want to make a new one, not know how to fix the old one.
You're exactly right. It's an art.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good day.
You too. Have a good evening. Thanks for checking out the program and calling in.
Yes, sir. No problem.
All right. Have a good night.
You have a good one.
You too.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. See? Always learn something, right? So here's a guy that was in the Navy. How cool is that? And comes out of the Navy as with all that machining experience, and kind of still works for him, right? Repairing naval stuff and weapon systems. And it was kind of funny. They break a lot of stuff. Yeah, you think? And it's pretty cool that he can save these things. You know, that everybody wants to just make a new one, but you know, and you have an artist, and you got a guy who knows how to do a little welding, a little fab work. You know, those guys, those fab guys, we have some at our shop, man. Those guys it's pretty amazing what they can bend and straighten out, and it's a real art. And appreciate the phone call. So it's interesting. Again, the phone lines are open, 800-870-1648. If you have a little story about the trade, if you're a mold maker, you want to talk about your apprenticeship, one of the questions I had tonight too. I was just curious. What's when you look back at your career here, I don't care if you've been doing this for 6 weeks, 6 years, or a long time like me. What's the coolest operation or machine you ever ran? And I ran a lot of cool machines because I was lucky. I got into the trade when we were just starting to switch to the NC CNC world on computers. But those first 3 or 4 years, I had to learn a lot of manual stuff. And as I said earlier, I think I said this, when I got into the CNC world, it was like cheating, right? I mean, it was so easy to make shapes that you used to have to go find a boring bar, and you can just circle mill a hole and creep up on. It's an amazing thing. But I was looking through the stuff I learned. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, there all the different areas of the shop I worked at, and I was again very lucky that the place I worked for, Anson Tools and Gauges, took their apprenticeship very, very seriously. All right, well, we have another phone call, so I can always put my thoughts on hold for one of our callers. This is Phil Kerner. It's Working Hands Radio. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Phil. This is John Scherf calling from Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. Been to Dayton, Ohio. My wife did a speaking engagement there a few years ago, and while she was doing that, I spent my time in the Air Force, or the National Air Museum there.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
Oh man, I couldn't believe it was free. I was in there for 3 hours, and I had to race through to see everything. So what's on your mind tonight?
Just keeps getting bigger and bigger every year, I'll tell you.
That's awesome. So what's on your mind tonight?
Yep. Well, I just wanted to call and tell you how much I appreciate your show, and I was in the tool and die business for 43 years. Started out in '64 in an apprenticeship, and about 1984 or 85, I started a gauge repair business, and now I repair gauges for a living at 72 years of age.
Now I know it sounds like a funny question, but there's a lot of different gauges out there. What type of gauges do you kind of specialize in?
Well, I specialize in dial indicators.
Okay.
Calipers, height gauges, dial bore gauges, you name it, and I work on it.
Now, you've been doing that since, what, 85?
About 85, yeah, sure have.
Now, are you by yourself, or do you have some employees?
I do it by myself. I have a grandson that helps me every once in a while, but mainly do it all by myself, and it keeps me busy. It's a hobby. It's a hobby that turned into a tough job, I'll tell you.
Now, are you still working this full time every day?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I work I spend about 2 or 3 days a week delivering and picking up gauges, that ones that don't get UPS to me. And I get gauges from, golly, all over the world. I get as far as Portugal. I think that's the furthest that I've gotten them from.
That's an awesome story. Now, how'd you learn how to repair gauges?
Well, my boss that I went through my apprenticeship with was a watchmaker.
Oh, okay.
and he sat me down and he taught me 90% of what I learned, and the rest of it has been, when you get one that's doing a certain thing, you just know where to go now. It's like, I guess, like being a doctor almost.
Well, I guess so. He taught you all these little intricacies. Do you have to be certified to work on Starrett or Mitutoyo or Brown and Sharp, or doesn't that matter?
Well, if you go into an ISO plant, you are required to show ISO certification on anything that you work on. And what I do is we have a very fine certification lab that is right out. In fact, it's right out by the Air Force Museum that you went to. And anything that I need certified for ISO, I after I repair it, I take it there, they certify it, and then forward it to my customer.
This is really a good story. I love this story. And in all fairness, too, the nice part about what you're doing, I would like to think, at our ages, right? I mean, you probably don't have to be on your feet that much. You could do this job for a long time if you felt like it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It keeps me in the trade that I loved so many years, because I get to go into the shops and see what the guys are doing. Yet at the same time, it has a very good feeling of satisfaction that you've helped some kid out that just threw a $250 indicator out of a Bridgeport. And we've all been there and we've all done it.
Yeah, after I started my own shop, I was helping a guy set up a machine, and I accidentally turned on the spindle on a Mazak with my beautiful interrapid indicator in it. And all I remember thinking is, where did it go? And about 3 seconds later, I heard it hit the wall about 50 feet away. Oh, well. Yeah.
Well, we used to have a saying in the shop. We used the shop that I worked in. We used a lot of Herrig index fixtures. Mm-hmm. And I used to hear people say, "Well, when you're carrying the Herrig to the service grinder, if you drop it, just keep walking." Right.
Now, this is a good question for you. A lot of us that grew up in the trade, when I was buying the majority of my tools back in the early '80s, my choices were pretty much Starrett, Brown and Sharp, and Mitutoyo, right? I think phase 2 or something, they were just starting to come in, but they weren't real popular. Now, as a young guy's buying stuff now, and he's getting on eBay, and he's seeing those catalogs that come into your shop with this stuff, just out of curiosity, when you look at instruments, and I mean, do you have some that you highly recommend the companies, for indicators?
Definitely.
What do you think is one of the better? What are your top 3 indicators?
Top 3 indicators. Top one is a Interrapid.
Mm-hmm, that's what I use.
Second would have been it's tough to find one, but an Alina.
Okay, I remember
indicator.
The name. Yep.
Because a lot of people like them because they've got a real wide sweep on the dial, which makes a tenth look like a half an inch.
All right.
But that's number 2, and golly, Mitutoyo falls right in there right now.
Okay.
Of course, Brown and Sharp is a quality instrument also.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that they're still well made, all of those?
Well, the Interrapids, they've cheapened them up just a little bit. They went from a bronze casting, they've gone to an aluminum casting.
Interesting.
On the new Interrapids. Brown and Sharp, basically almost parts that I've used for 20 years, I can still use the same parts in most Brown and Sharp test indicators.
Are they still building a lot of these in America, or are they almost all outsourced now?
A lot of them are outsourced, Swiss. Although most of them have parts supply houses in the U.S.
Okay. While I've got you on the phone here, if you guys are listening, I'm watching the Facebook feed. If you have any questions here for the Gauge guy, let him have it. If you don't mind, I'll pass those on to you. But so you're in Dayton, Ohio. What's the name of your business?
Name of the company is Indicare. It's spelled INDICARE.
Nice. And
it's.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say my website is, if anybody wants to look it up, it's www.indicaregauge.com.
Cool.
And Gauge is spelled Gage.
Okay. Well, this is a great phone call. And how did you hear about the program? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I was on Facebook one night, and I was just going through there, and I saw this live broadcast. And I thought, golly, I've never seen a broadcast on people that are doing what I did all my life. and I've been on it every Tuesday. I'm there at 7:00, and you do a great job. I mean, I'm telling you, it's I'd like to see a lot of these young kids that's getting out of high school to get on here and watch this, or watch and listen to it, and see what a camaraderie there is amongst all of us.
Well, I that's why I'm here. This program is nothing without you guys commenting and calling in. That was my dream when I put this together, was to make sure we got guys like you on the air with these great stories. So while we were chatting, if you noticed, if you're watching this on Facebook, I've got a Gerstner toolbox behind me. And in that Gerstner...
Made right here in Dayton, Ohio.
That's right. That's right. And in that Gerstner toolbox, there's a dial indicator that I believe was my father's. And it hasn't worked for a long time. So while you were chatting, I could still hear you. My headset goes that far. I just had to lean backwards. I opened up my velvet box here, and I've got an Alina indicator right here.
I'll be darned.
It's a number 88.
Right. Yep.
And it's a little sticky, so we might have to send that in, and maybe you can take a look at it.
Well, you send it in to me, and I'll clean it up and send it to you, and there won't be any charge for it.
That would be awesome. Yep, this is pretty old.
Yep.
It's got the face isn't that big, but it's pretty cool. When I'm done with you, I'll hold it up to the camera here. But boy, I'll tell you, I appreciate the phone call. I'm going to hold this up right now.
I'm sympathetic to young kids that send me indicators, and people that send me anything that belong to their dad, their grandpa, their great grandpa. I know how much those tools mean to the people.
Well, my history, my family history is in this trade, and I like I said earlier, when I retire, I don't know if I could ever sell this stuff. It's all just means so much to me. I've worked so hard and so long, and I've made millions of dollars worth of products with these these tools, and it'd be tough to see them go someday. I can tell you that. Well, I just want to thank you for your call, and I'll look you up, and I'll send you this Alina indicator, and you can see if it's worth saving or not. Okay?
Okay, and anybody has any questions, they've got my email address on there and all that. They can send me a question, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has, and I appreciate you taking my phone call.
I appreciate you calling in. You have a great night in Dayton, Ohio, okay?
All right, you too.
All right.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. All right. That's why we're here, right? What a great phone call. What a great trade. The fact that this guy is still pretty much doing this full time. And, as you mold makers and tool makers and guys out there know, as you get a little older, sometimes being on your feet all day is a little rough. So, he's got this guy's nice gauge repair business. Nice. Well, that was a good story. Love it. So, and by the way, for you guys who need more information on his business, this program is recorded. So about when I'm done tonight, they're all there. They all stay on Facebook. And it takes about 15 minutes, I think, after I'm done, because it's an hour-long video to cook. But you can find this segment again, because I don't have information right in front of me with his business name. But what a great business. There's always calipers that are sticky or something, and indicators that need a little tightening up. So I think I might be able to send him some work. What do you think? All right, let's just take a 1 or 2 minutes so I can get a little drink of water here, and we'll be right back here with some other fun stuff. I had a picture I posted on Facebook just a few days ago. It's been viewed almost 10,000 times, and it was a great story about the question was, what's the most hours you've ever worked straight through with no naps? I mean, you just had to get a project done. So we'll be right back with that and your calls, and see you in just a minute. Hi folks, this is Phil Kerner for Working Hands Radio. Let's face it, the last 10 years or so has been one tough ride for American manufacturing. Well, this sponsor of Working Hands Radio has managed to not only get through the last 10 years, but just celebrated their 50th year in business in 2017. Folks, I've been doing this for a long time, and I have to tell you, I've never seen a shop that jumps through more hoops to keep their customers satisfied than Industrial Sales and Manufacturing right here in Erie, Pennsylvania. With over $30 million in equipment on the shop floor, no job is too simple, no job is too complex for ISM. CNC milling and turning, robotic welding, laser cutting, plasma burning, assembly, and powder coating are all done under one roof, which gives ISM a big edge over many companies that might have to subcontract many of those operations out and lose control of the process. Industrial Sales and Manufacturing deals with some of the most demanding customers in the world and strives for continuous improvement on a daily basis. Built in Erie, found around the world. Give them a shot. ISMErie.com. Do you like building things? Are you new to manufacturing and don't even know where to start? Or maybe you just want to learn about machining and manufacturing as a hobby? I'm Phil Kerner, and I can tell you from experience that the best way to learn a trade is from an expert with a solid body of work under his or her belt to show you the way. During the past 40 years, I served my apprenticeship, worked as a lead mold maker, ran my own tool and die shops, a plastic shop, and have also worked as a designer and a machinist. If you're hungry to learn the tips, tricks, and techniques in manufacturing that have taken me 5 decades to put together, I'd invite you to check out thetoolanddieguy.com, where I just posted my 340th lesson on machining and manufacturing. Folks, this is real manufacturing. This is the stuff I do every day to be an asset to my company. And once you're an asset, it's tough for them to let you go. 43 years in the trade, 0 layoffs. Check it out. Special discount for the next 48 hours, thetoolanddieguy.com.
Working Hands Radio.
And there you have it, workbenches from around the world. Those were all sent in to me a few weeks ago. I asked guys to post a picture of where they work or their work area. And you guys did a great job. That's not even all of them. But some nice-looking toolboxes there, some nice-looking work areas. I love this stuff. I enjoy looking at that stuff. And, let's think about that. If we really thought about this hard and long, if I were to come into your shop tomorrow, if you're a tool guy and really wanted to look at my toolbox or or I could look at your toolbox and go through these, why'd you buy this, when'd you buy it, what do you use it for? We'd all take each other up on that, right? We'd want to see those cool tools. And again, when you're a tool and die maker or a tool and die guy or a mold maker, it's all about the tools. And again, we just had that great phone call from somebody who repairs those tools. That was really fun. So this week I did post a photo, and let me find that photo here. There it is. What's the longest you've ever worked straight through to get a job or a project done? And that kind of set me off for the whole program this week to go down memory lane a little bit with the mold making and tool making thing, because I got a lot of great answers. And I think my record, I think I put on Facebook on my own was 34 hours straight, but I think it was 37, whatever. And I remember at the end of that project, I was numb. And but we got a big bonus. Me and this young kid named Bill got this bonus to get this big project done. It was a pet carrier, so you could put your dog on a airplane. It was plastic, 2 halves with a wire door. And there was this company down in Pittsburgh, by Pittsburgh, called Stylet. I don't think they're probably still there anymore. And he built a lot of patio tables, but this was going to be the next big thing. We built us big, large, medium, and small carriers, but they needed this one for a show. And Bill and I worked right through Christmas, 37 hours straight. I think we got a $3,500 bonus from that. Can you imagine that? That was like 1986. And but I never did that again. Well, anyways, I posted this picture. And I got a lot of comments. Like I said, almost, I haven't looked at it tonight, but it was up to almost 10,000 views before we went on the air. See, I started going through. So a guy named Mitch Sweeney worked 42 straight hours. A guy named William McEnery worked, sorry if I mispronounced that, 52 straight hours. Mike Valentine worked 68 straight hours. Philip Horton worked 58 straight hours. Daryl Wallen worked 72 straight hours. And this guy, Mike, and I'm sorry, Mike, if you're listening, Mike Reggiardo worked 96 straight hours. That is just hard to believe. I mean, the one common thread that everybody put in there, though, they were all said, for the most part, they're a lot younger when they did that. You got to be to do that. I mean, boy, without a nap. So, again, the question was, and I'll give you the winning answer in a minute, what's the longest you've ever worked straight through to get a job or project done with no naps, right? Well, the winner, of course, would be Matthew Seville, 20 minutes. That's the longest he'll work without a nap. And that's pretty good answer. I enjoyed that. So always enjoy the interaction. But again, going through those answers the last few days, it brought back a lot of memories for me. And it's just the way it was. You'd get these projects and for these injection molds, and I do remember now in that lifetime, it was so important for these plastic parts to get done. See, because back then, you couldn't 3D print stuff. You had to at least get a prototype built so you could squirt some plastic into it, right? And get these things to these shows. And there's different shows, as you know, around the country. Not trade shows, but I guess they are trade shows. But the guys who sell plastic stuff and pet stuff, they need to get to that show. And the people who make drinkware and the toys, it's all about the shows, right? So, hey, the phone lines are open. We're having a lot of fun here with your phone calls. Again, 800-870-1648. You're listening to Working Hands Radio. I'm Phil Kerner, the Tool and Die Guy. And, as I always say, the reason we did this, the reason we're here tonight is for you. I don't want to sit here for an hour talking to myself. I'd keep myself entertained, but it'd be kind of weird, right? So, Matthew Seville, congratulations on that 20-minute stretch. If you guys have anything on your mind tonight, you want to talk about those long hours you used to work as toolmakers? There does come a point of diminishing return, though, right? You do get to a point where you see the more overtime you work, the more the feds take out of it. It's interesting. So, while I'm waiting for that next phone call, because I feel it. I feel another phone call is coming here. People ask me about this chair in the background next to my bottle of water here, my empty bottle of water. This might be the hardest injection mold I ever built. And this was for the Little Tykes Toy Company, and this was a lawn chair for one of their, I hate to use the word dollhouse, but little people, they'd come up with this new line. And, for those of you that are my mold making friends, this has got some party line on it. I think it was actually molded like that, on that angle. And, of course, this camera, I'm not going to get it. So you had a core, I think the core was here, and we had a big cylinder come in and fill it in these legs. I'd have to I don't have the design for this anymore. I remember this was a single cavity. I'm pretty sure there's a sprue mark in here somewhere where we filled this with, I think it was just a single cavity, and $54,000 we got paid for that. And think about this. This was all done, if you're ready for this, this was all done on a Deckel KF12. The whole parting line, all of it, was done on an engraving machine, because everybody gets the Deckels confused with the pantographs, but the KF12 was a pantograph, but a much heavier duty one. And with that, my white chair is obviously good luck. We'll go to the phones. Hi, it's Phil Kerner. This is Working Hands Radio. You're on the air.
Hey, this is Travis White. I got a question for you.
Okay.
I am actually 30 years old
Okay.
and really considering opening a machine shop or just a small shop, period.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your best advice for that?
Well, what's your background? What do you know?
I actually went and got an associate's degree in machine tools and graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I've been doing machining since 2006.
All right. Do you have a specialty? Is there something you really like and you're really good at it? So some people are really good at mills. Some people are really good at lathes. Some people are really good at grinders.
Lathe.
You're a lathe guy?
Yes, sir. To be honest, I really enjoy like 5-axis lathes, like the mill turns, the CNC mill turns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And is that what you're doing? And you work in a shop now doing that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now that we know you've got this pretty smart guy here, you can do 5-axis work, and obviously you're good with a cam system then, right? You understand those systems.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you'd like to start your own shop.
Yes, sir.
And what part of the country are you in?
I'm actually in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. And my sister and brother-in-law live in Mooresville. You know where that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I actually used to work in Mooresville.
Okay. Anyways, Chris might be listening tonight. So, anyways, well, boy, you know, first of all, do you think do you have a lead on any work?
I'm pretty sure I could actually have a potential lead. One of my big leads would probably be one of the shipyards that I used to work for. They farm out a lot of work, especially high volume quality work, stuff like that.
Do you have a place where you could even open up a small shop? Do you have a building or anything like that?
There is a few places that I know that actually went out of business that are looking to lease.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I know a few places.
Now, the big question, you know, I doubt if you're going to be able to, I mean, unless you've done really well, I mean, you got a big nut to crack there. That's an expensive machine. Would you like to start off with a 5-axis lathe, or would you be willing to start off a little smaller to get started?
To be honest, I would like to start off with a manual Bridgeport and a manual lathe, to be honest.
Okay. Well, you know, do you think you could compete with that? Because I know, you know, especially for the high volume stuff, that stuff, you know, the CNCs eat that stuff up. You really think you could compete with a manual machine?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I could.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I could.
Well, I'll tell you. And may I ask, how old are you?
30.
Yeah,
I just turned 32.
So I was 31 when I started my shop. So you're the right age. You've got the right experience, and you still got a lot of energy left to do it. So, you know, I always tell people, you know, how I did it. You know, you got to go work a deal on that lathe and on that Bridgeport. You know, and you'd like to think now with, you know, I'm always shocked that these machinery dealers are asking for this used stuff because, God, there's got to be a lot of it available. I think a lot of guys are snapping that stuff up for their houses though, because they've always wanted a lathe or a Bridgeport. But you know, just some things to think about. You know, so you can maybe find a little place. But you know, there's always a couple things people don't think about, and don't forget. So you get these two machines, and don't forget you got to buy all the tooling for them. And carbide and tooling isn't cheap, right? And all the collets and the chucks. Then you got to get them wired in. I don't know if you know how to do industrial wiring. And then you got to figure out a way. And then you got to figure out a way to get your material in and out. You know, if somebody needs a bunch of parts, you got to either go get the parts or order the stock and get that in off the truck. Just little things like that are the ones that'll, you know, stump you, because you probably aren't going to have a forklift or a crane to start with. You know, so just little things like that can really throw a monkey wrench into starting a shop unless you think about it. You know.
Yes, sir.
But you know, I remember I worked my day job and found some work and kept my day job for about 6 months or 8 months and worked at night for 2 or 3 hours getting small orders done. Is that something you think you could do?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I could.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you. You know, I remember I did
Well, to be honest, that's actually what I wanted to do, is start off kind of small and then work my way from there till I could actually make ends meet from the business.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
that's what I was planning on doing.
your biggest deal now is to go find. Do you have some money saved to go buy a lathe and a mill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to take a wild stab at it, and I haven't bought equipment in a long time, but I would like to think you could buy a very nice used Bridgeport. I would like to think $3,500 should buy you a nice Bridgeport. Does that sound about right? Have you priced any of this stuff yet?
Yes, sir. That actually is about right.
Okay. And that
but
should
now
with a digital readout on it too, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I'm thinking, what, 4,000 or 5,000 for a nice lathe?
Well, you know what, and that's probably my biggest problem. I don't know what size lathe to actually start off with, because you don't want to start off too small to limit yourself, but you don't want to start off really huge to where you can't really do anything small in it. You understand what I'm saying?
I totally get it. I always had a theory, though. You can always do small work on a big machine, but you can't do usually big work on a small machine. But I understand lathes can get really big, and I know just enough about lathes to be dangerous. I can run an engine lathe, obviously, but I always specialized in mill work. So the lathes, I mean, I can run a lathe, but I don't. It's been a long time since I've been really familiar with the swing sizes and the chuck sizes and everything. So, that would be fun to do. Now, do you have machinery dealers near you, or do you have to look at this stuff online?
No, I actually have a CNC dealer near me, and then there's one or two manual dealers not too far from me, too.
Well, first thing I would do if I were you is I'd look for the building first. You don't want to end up with this equipment and not have a place to put it. So,
yes, sir.
Put some feelers out, find a little 1,000 square feet where you can maybe have a little garage door to open up and back your pickup truck in with some steel in it or whatever you need to do, because you're probably going to need some sort of van or a truck to get started. You don't need a giant one, but
yes,
just to get started. But also, then start putting your feelers out a little bit without losing your job over it, because the other thing is you don't want to lose your job because
yes,
you don't want to lose those health care benefits, right? So,
yes, sir.
Yep. So I don't know if this helped you at all or not. Does that help you at all, or is there anything else I can answer for you?
It did.
Okay. Well,
It did.
I appreciate the call, and please keep us posted. Obviously you're following me on the Tool and Die Guy, so go ahead and message.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and message me sometime if you want to send me pictures or ask ideas. I'm pretty busy during the day, but a lot of times at night I can answer messages. So you can message me at the Tool and Die Guy, and if you want me to look at look at some pictures or offer some advice, I'd be more than happy to do that.
All right. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks for calling in. Have a great night.
Same to you.
All right. All right. Wow. Kind of fun. I always like that. Why do I just love giving advice? Well, probably should hang up. Oh, God. All right. So anyways, that's all I could do. I'm like, I could end up being like the Dr. Phil of machinery, right? I could solve everybody's problems, but you guys are way smarter than I am. Because I started my shop so young at age 31, and then, I did that for 10 or 12 years. Well, that was in the sweet spot of my career. And that was 10 or 12 years where I did run some machines. If we got behind, I was on the shop floor. But, you guys that have run this stuff for years non-stop, you probably know a lot more than I do. So, but, we have a soft spot here for people that want to start their own shop. And, it takes a lot of guts to go out there and do that. And God bless him. He wants to do it with the manual machines to start. And that tells me he knows what he's doing, though, right? He's not a button pusher. And we like those guys a lot. This is an email I got. When I'm done with this program tonight, Facebook will save it for me. And then what I'll end up doing is downloading it from Facebook. And then I'll edit it a little bit. And then I'll put it up on YouTube. Now, I have a choice when I do this program, and I've covered this before. I can either cast this on YouTube or cast this on Facebook. And there's a reason for that. And that I don't do both because you can't stream. This is what I'm doing, is streaming tonight to two different platforms. Now, there's some expensive stuff that'll do it for you, but we're not there yet. And there's some other stuff I could do. I could buy another computer and do that, and another webcam and do that. It's just too much. And Facebook's actually, I like the platform because I can, you guys get a little notification. I can let you guys know the night before. It's just a much more social network. And as I've said before, YouTube could get a little nasty because people don't have to use their real names, right? So you guys, as I said in my opening, you're a polite bunch of guys. Smart people are polite people too. I think so. And it shows with your calls and your comments. And we appreciate that very much. Don't need to get the blood pressure up there. So anyways, when I do post these to YouTube, I've got this guy who goes by the name Active Adam, A-T-O-M, Adam Baum. And he always posts these really polite things. He's in Yucca Valley, California. Lance and Patrick must be their names. We live in Southern California. Its population, sometimes things don't get, when they write the sentences get screwed up. We love our guns in the Mojave Desert. We own this little shop. We don't make any money yet, but we have built our first product, Phil. We're using crowdfunding to get it out there. Been in aerospace and watch parts machining since 1973. They're not, excuse me, not ISO yet, but if they start looking at outside work, we'll have to have it. And he goes through, he's got 3-phase in his house, and they've got a couple of machines there. But we love this radio show and just wanted to share our thoughts while listening in. So if this is Lance and Patrick, we appreciate those kind words. Again, YouTube's just been a mixed bag for the Tool and Die guy over the years. And as I said, it's because, I think it's because people are anonymous. So, all right. Well, by my account, we are just about done here. I can stay later. If somebody wants to chat about the trade we all love, I'm still here. But this is about that time when we start winding down the program. And good one tonight. Appreciate those phone calls. Really fun calls tonight. And again, that's why I'm here, to take your phone calls and bring you guys together and share those stories. And we heard from a lot of different, I love the calls we had tonight. And, sometimes when I'm in the middle of this broadcasting, it's fun for me to go back and listen to them again. And it's always very heartwarming for me to know people are out there listening and want to talk about this trade. This trade's been good to me and my family. My grandfather was a tool and die maker, but back then they called them pattern makers. And in 1906 at a place called Parker White Metal, just outside of town here in Erie. And of course, taught that trade to his sons, and I came along, and my uncles, and I'm the last of the Mohicans here. And this is my legacy, to bring you guys together. Maybe someday when this trade comes back, which I certainly hope it does, because we need tool makers. We need people who can build injection molds and dies. And it's an important job, and it's a great trade. And you all know that. So, great calls tonight. As I always say, I'm here to tell your stories. This is the Phil Kerner Show. This is Working Hands Radio. This is about your stories. And I do appreciate you guys taking the time to out of your Tuesday evening to call in tonight and listen tonight and check in on Facebook to learn more about Working Hands Radio. You can just go to the Tool and Die Guy page. That's where I'm kind of based, right? It's toolanddieguy.com. I know most of the guys out there listening don't need lessons from me. I get that. But there's always a special running there if you just want to watch me work. That might be worth a few bucks. But other than that, all the programs are there. There's a button called Working Hands Radio, and all the previous 15 programs, I believe, are up there. You can either listen to them and just audio, or you can see my smiling face. And either that, or on the audio version side, you can download it for your podcast, so you can take me with you everywhere, which is, I know, what you guys want. The other thing is, if you go to toolanddieguy.com, besides the membership stuff, everything you want to know about me is there. I mean, I'm a pretty transparent guy there. There's a lot of the press work I've done, the book I was in, anything you want to know about the Tool and Die Guy, Phil Kerner, everything's there. And also, there's some really good photo galleries there. There's a KTD1, that was my uncle's shop, and there's a KTD2, which is my shop. So if you're wondering to see what I was up to back in the day, it's all there, because we like pictures. Websites with pictures are fun, especially pictures of this stuff. So I'd like to take just a moment to thank my sponsor, the Rakowski family, Industrial Sales and Manufacturing. I'm not kidding you guys. It's a great shop. If you guys need some work done, need a quote, check those guys out, ismerie.com. But as always, we produce this program, Working Hands Radio, because we love working with their hands. And because building stuff with your hands, we think that's pretty cool, right? So I'm the Tool and Die Guy. I'm Phil Kerner. We'll be right here this time, 7 p.m. next week. Big weekend coming up. Class reunion. Yep, 10th class reunion. Can you believe that? Number 10. Where'd the years go? 20, 25, 30. No, 30? 35? Yeah. Hey, now, okay, I'm getting there. It's my 40th class reunion. Can you even believe it? But the good news is I'm still here to go to it. So that's good. So a man who works with his hands is a laborer. A man who works with his hands and his brain is a craftsman. But a man who works with his hands and his brain and his heart is an artist. That's what you guys are. So until next week, keep the faith. I'm Phil Kerner. This is Working Hands Radio, and we'll see you out there live on Facebook the next day or so. Good night.